Here is a question nobody in NASCAR really expected to be asking seriously just 2 years ago. What does a YouTube car guy with millions of subscribers actually need to prove before NASCAR lets him loose at Talladega? Because that question now has a real answer, and the man who gave it is one of the most powerful executives in the sport. Cleetus McFarland ran at Rockingham. He pulled viewership numbers that made the whole series look good, and then NASCAR looked him in the eye and said, "Not yet." But here is what most people missed in the denial headline. NASCAR did not just say no. They explained why, and more importantly, they told everyone watching exactly what comes next, and that changes everything about how this story should be read. To understand the denial, you have to understand what Rockingham actually was, and what it was not. Cleetus McFarland made his O'Reilly Auto Parts Series debut there. It was his first real shot at proving he belonged at that level of competition, and NASCAR was watching closely, with Talladega already on the table as a potential next step. The race itself was eventful, to put it charitably. Cleetus qualified near the back of the field, spun multiple times throughout the event, and ultimately finished 30th, 6 laps down. He did not wreck out. He did not collect anyone else in a big crash. He brought the car home. But he was also clearly still finding his footing in a competitive field where pace, traffic management, and tire wear all operate at a completely different level than what he had experienced before. To his credit, Cleetus did not sugarcoat any of it. When the denial came through, he got in front of his audience himself and laid out exactly what happened. He spun several times, he did not do enough to earn the green light, and he gets it. That kind of honesty is worth acknowledging because it reflects a clear-eyed understanding of where he actually stands in the developmental ladder. He also put the whole situation in perspective, noting that this opportunity landed about 2 months before the race, and the idea of running a superspeedway came together fast. He has been in NASCAR racing for roughly a year at this point, and he said flat out that more windshield time is what he needs, whether that is in the O'Reilly car, an ARCA car, or a truck. He acknowledged he has a lot left to learn. That is not the response of someone who thinks he has been wronged. That is the response of someone who knows the gap is real and is willing to close it the right way. Now here is where this story gets genuinely interesting, because NASCAR did not just quietly deny the entry and move on. John Probst, NASCAR's executive vice president, came out and explained the decision in unusually clear terms, and the specificity of what he said is what separates this story from a standard rejection headline. The core message was this is not a permanent no. It is a not yet. Probst confirmed that Cleetus is currently approved for O'Reilly Series short tracks, all of ARCA, and all of the Truck Series. That is a meaningful range of competition. What he is not approved for, at least right now, is the superspeedway level in the O'Reilly car. NASCAR wants to see more from him in the short track environment before that door opens. Then Probst went further, and this is the part that deserves serious attention. He clarified that this was not some backroom call made on a whim. Both NASCAR's competition side and its marketing side were part of the conversation. But he was specific about where the weight fell. This decision was driven by racing readiness, not promotional value. That is a significant thing to say out loud. Because Cleetus absolutely has promotional value. Rockingham's numbers proved it. And Probst basically acknowledged that NASCAR understands the entertainment pull here. But he also said there is a fine line between the entertainment side and the sport of racing, and that line matters at Talladega more than anywhere else on the calendar. He capped it with something that tells you everything about where NASCAR's head is. They would love to see Cleetus at Talladega someday. He just will not be ready for this spring. Not hostile. Not dismissive. Just honest about where the development curve actually sits. Here is the thing that might frustrate fans looking for a clear checklist. NASCAR has not handed Cleetus a specific target to hit. Probst addressed this directly. He said every driver's path is a little different. There is no universal formula they can hand out that says finish top 20 twice or do not spin more than once per race and you are cleared for Daytona. It does not work that way. What NASCAR wants to see is progression. Consistent progression. More races in live competitive conditions. More situational comfort, understanding how to manage traffic, how to read tire life, how to stay out of trouble when things go sideways around him. Probst acknowledged that Cleetus is not traveling a conventional path. Most drivers who reach O'Reilly Series races have spent years stacking late model wins, ARCA laps, and truck starts before getting there. Cleetus has one truck race and one O'Reilly race to his name. That is the reality of where he is in the developmental sequence, and NASCAR is saying they want to progress him as quickly as they can, but in a way that is meaningful, not just fast. The goal is to never put him in a situation where he is genuinely out of his depth at a track where the consequences of being out of your depth are severe. At Talladega, cars travel in packs at speeds exceeding 180 miles per hour, and the margin for error that exists on a short track simply does not exist there. That is the specific context behind Probst's language, and it explains why the standard for superspeedway approval sits where it does. Even with the denial dominating the headlines, there is a parallel story running underneath all of this that might actually be more important for the long-term picture. Cleetus McFarland moves viewers, and at Rockingham, the numbers back that up in a concrete and measurable way. According to Sports Business Journal's Adam Stern, as reported by On3, the CW drew a 0.65 rating and over 1.16 million viewers for the Rockingham-O'Reilly race. That was up 12% in rating and 11% in viewership compared to the same race the year before. Through the first 7 races of the O'Reilly season, the series was averaging over 1.28 million viewers per race, up 3.6% year over year. That is real movement in a media environment where most motorsports properties would take any positive trend they can get. The argument that Cleetus brings new eyeballs to NASCAR, crossover viewers, curiosity fans, YouTube audiences who do not traditionally watch stock car racing, that argument looks very real after Rockingham. NASCAR sees it. Richard Childress Racing sees it. Sponsors see it. And that is exactly why the denial was not about trying to freeze him out. If NASCAR were purely chasing buzz, Cleetus would already be in a car at Talladega. They are choosing the longer, slower path deliberately, because they want the entertainment value and the safety standard to move together, not in opposite directions. The viewership story is the clearest evidence that Cleetus is not a novelty act being tolerated at the margins of the sport. He is a driver whose presence is producing measurable, documented results for a series that benefits directly from that growth. Here is the other piece of this story that got buried under the denial coverage, and it is arguably just as revealing about the direction this is all heading. On April 7, Cleetus McFarland announced a multi-year endorsement partnership with Polaris. The official release described the deal as a collaboration built around motorsports culture, more experiences, more content, more events for his audience. On3 reported that the deal specifically allows Cleetus to use Polaris products across his YouTube content, which plugs directly into the Freedom Factory world he has built over years of creating hands-on automotive content. Polaris's own messaging made their reasoning clear. They wanted to be part of the ecosystem Cleetus has built, the Freedom Factory, the channel, the loud hands-on community events that his audience genuinely loves. Cleetus himself described it as a natural fit with everything he has built around freedom, horsepower, and having a good time. This matters for one simple reason: a multi-year deal from a brand like Polaris does not happen because someone had a rough debut race and got denied a superspeedway entry. It happens because the underlying business case is still strong and the commercial momentum surrounding his NASCAR involvement is producing real results beyond the track itself. The denial changed the timeline. It did not change the trajectory, and the Polaris announcement is the most direct proof of that. So where does this go from here? The path is straightforward, even if the exact milestones are not spelled out in a checklist. Cleetus needs more races. More short track laps in the O'Reilly car. More ARCA starts. More truck appearances. He needs to keep stacking experience in live competition until the collective picture, cleaner runs, better situational awareness, more consistency when the car gets loose, convinces NASCAR that the superspeedway step is genuinely ready to be taken. Probst was clear that Talladega and Daytona in the O'Reilly car are not off the table permanently. Spring 2026 is off the table. The future version of that opportunity is still real. Cleetus himself called the denial a kick in the nuts, which is honest, but he also said it was not as devastating as it might look from the outside, because what he actually needs most is more time behind the wheel. More windshield time, as he put it. That is exactly what the progression path requires, and it is notable that his own assessment of what he needs lines up directly with what NASCAR is asking him to do. And here is the part worth sitting with: if he does eventually get to Talladega having earned it, with a meaningful body of short track and intermediate races behind him, with real racecraft development visible in the results, that moment is going to land significantly bigger than it would have if NASCAR had simply waved him through after one O'Reilly race. The payoff is still there. It just requires the work first, and every race between now and that superspeedway debut is building towards something real. NASCAR did not drop a shocking one-line requirement, and they did not hand out a rigid checklist. What John Probst and NASCAR revealed is actually more meaningful than a checklist could ever be. They want progression, they want racecraft development, and they want to make absolutely sure the entertainment value never gets so far out ahead of the skill level that someone gets hurt at one of the fastest and most unforgiving tracks in the sport. That is not a door being closed. That is a door being held open with conditions attached, and those conditions exist for documented, specific reasons tied directly to what a superspeedway demands of every driver on it. Cleetus is still racing. He is still pulling viewers. He just landed a multi-year Polaris sponsorship deal. And the top executives at NASCAR have gone out of their way to say publicly that they want him to succeed. The only thing that changed is when Talladega happens, not whether it happens. If you want more breakdowns like this, real analysis built on facts, not just headlines, hit that like button and subscribe to NASCAR Central. We cover everything happening in this sport week by week, and every story we bring you is built the same way this one was, with the actual details that the headlines leave out.